Hi folks, this is Tony for a minute to midnight.com with a short video update. I am seeing things happening so quickly as we basically get into the beast system, the Bible's end time beast system, and this short video I just want to show you some recent things that I feel are important to keep track of with everything that is happening. So let's look at this website. The United Nations New World Order. Let's take our planet back, it says. The United Nations New World Order project is a global high-level initiative founded in 2008 to advance a new economic paradigm, a new political order, and more broadly, a new world order for humankind, which achieves the UN's global goals for sustainable development by 2030 and the happiness and well-being, freedom of all life on Earth by 2050. Wow. Gee, thank you. We really need the United Nations to make us happy. You can see there are three main initiatives here. Happytalism, a new economic paradigm which places happiness, well-being and freedom at the centre of human development models, systems and all life. And then there is United Nations International Day of Happiness, which was on March 20th, supposedly. And then you have the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Apparently, since 2008, they've been advancing this paradigm, economic paradigm of happytalism. A great revolution is waiting for us. The crisis doesn't only make us free to imagine other models, another future, another world, it obliges us to do so. That's former French President Nicolas Sarkozy in September 2008. And according to this website, their goal is to make an impact across the globe and make 10 billion people happy by 2050 through happytalism as a new economic paradigm for humanity. In other words, they want to get rid of capitalism and put us into some sort of a socialist world order, as we've been seeing happening in all sorts of directions. So I was sent an email from someone who's a regular follower of aminutetomidnight.com, and this is what she had to say. Thank you for this, Tracy. She says, anyway, I noticed an unusual partnership on there. It's a company called Happytalism. I looked up the CEO is a guy named James Ilian. I looked him up and his Wikipedia page is oddly missing. However, I found it on the Wayback Machine. Here's what I found. On the UN's page, they show that they are partnered with Happytalism, and the UN CEO and founder of Happytalism is James Ilian, who Wikipedia page is oddly missing, but he can be found using the Wayback, and it's interesting. You find, what's his background? Well, according to his deleted Wikipedia page, he has a bizarre background. Birth date unknown, found by the side of the road in India in a place known as the City of Joy. His name, Adam, named Adam by Saint Mother Teresa at orphanage in Calcutta, India. Known for CEO of United Nations New World Order project and democratization of global financial markets. And has worked with all the big banking moguls. Chase Morgan, BOE, is also a global economist and security expert who serves as United Nations representative for economists for peace and safety. Parents, Saint Annabelle, mother, who was adopted by a single white 45-year-old American nurse who founded Adoptions International, ? The happy day that he is founder of is a day held on March 20th each year. On his Wikipedia page that was deleted, the day is known as Nowruz, and it's Iranian Persian mythology. The Shahnameh credits the founder of Nowruz to the mythical Iranian king Jamshid, who saves mankind from a winter destined to kill every living creature. To defeat the killer winter, Jamshid constructed a throne studded with gems. He had demons raise him above the earth into the heavens. There he sat, shining like the sun. The world's creatures gathered and scattered jewels around him and proclaimed that this day was New Day, or now Ruse. On this day, the new day, this is what they are actually celebrating. Part of the ritual is to jump over a fire pit. Remind you of the story of Lucifer by any chance, she says. So that is certainly interesting. Capitalism, a new economic system, socio-political philosophy and human development paradigm which faces the primacy of happiness, which places the primacy of happiness, well-being and freedom at the centre of human development and all life. So one of the other partners is the United Nations International Day of Happiness, which recognises happiness as a fundamental human right and goal and is celebrated every March 20th forever, which is what March 20th I just told you what that is. Now let's just have a look and cross over and go and look at this one. International Day of Happiness. Happiness for all together. Let's unite and win the fight against COVID-19. By following this year's 10 Steps to Global Happiness for 2020 International Day of Happiness, which has already been, it was the 20th of March. But there's a bunch of guidelines they've set here. Let's stick together. Follow WHO advice, World Health Organization of course. Virtually attend a World Happiness event. Stay social online. Be kind, share and say thank you. Stay active and be mindful. Reminds me of mindfulness because it talks about meditation and practicing mindfulness and yoga. And this is basically the United Nations introducing us to the New Age, but I will explain a bit more about that because it's always been a part of the United Nations, occultism and the New Age, and I'll show you why in a little while. Number 7, be optimistic, positive and resilient. Stay informed about facts and news. And of course they don't want you finding alternative news, they just want you to have the official news. Enjoy nature. And number 10, adopt capitalism. Pledge to create more happiness in the world, and they even give you a pledge form at the end. Wow, how fuzzy, warm and fuzzy feeling this all is. And by the way, folks, there is a World Government Summit that's held each year, and there is a big emphasis on global happiness at that World Government Summit. And there is even a Global Council for Happiness and Wellbeing, and they have presented at the World Government Summit as well.
Human beings have been seeking happiness for as long as we've been around. Great moral teachers throughout history and across cultures have been pointing the way to happiness and well-being through lives filled with meaning, compassion, moderation, learning, and responsibility to the community. Aristotle taught the tenets of eudaimonia, or thriving. Buddha showed the path to nirvana. Confucius emphasized virtue. Hillel the Elder lived by the Golden Rule. Jesus preached forgiveness, humility, and love. And Muhammad taught
Notice how they're lumping all the religions in together.
Material wealth. Are now producing an annual Global Happiness and Well-Being Policy Report, a compendium of demonstrated practices for governments, businesses, schools, city planners, health systems, and other institutions in society. This is a kind of policy handbook for happiness and well-being. In the 2019 report, we explore case studies on 6 themes: healthcare, positive education, ethical work and business, personal happiness, happy cities, and policies for government.
I'm telling you, folks, the religion of the New World Order is Luciferianism, New Age, occultism. And that's not the same thing as Satanism. I don't want to go into the differences here, but the details of the differences, but they are not the same thing. But we have a Luciferian religion that is being pushed for the New World Order. I'll give you a bit of an overview as to why I think it's a distinct possibility. For example, the Lucis Trust, formerly the Lucifer Publishing Company, who have their headquarters at the United Nations. In 2 Thessalonians 2, 3 and 4, it says, "Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God." See, that is what Lucifer, I believe, already is doing. He's replacing God, he's replacing Jesus through the New Age movement and the Luciferians, and he is placing himself as God. The ultimate coup would be if he can get all of humanity to worship him as the replacement for God. So I want to show you why I think that is a distinct possibility that the one world religion will end up being a worshipping of Lucifer, and that they will know exactly who they're worshipping. Lucifer, or Satan, will give his power to the beast, and ultimately, because he's such a narcissist, he will want the worship for himself through the beast. And so the global religion, I believe, will be one that actually worships Lucifer.
A world where the United Nations, freed from Cold War stalemate, is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
After 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
A new world order?
Into the creation of a new world order.
I'm not going to spend any great time on discussing the Theosophical Society, but it's important to mention the following, that on May 3rd, 1878, in a prospectus issued to explain the origin, plan and aim of the Theosophical Society, to the pen of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky and drafted by a Colonel H.S. Olcott, was stated this, just a very short piece I'll read. "The Society teaches and expects its fellows to personally exemplify the highest morality and religious aspiration," now get this, "to oppose the materialism of science and every form of dogmatic theology, especially the Christian, which the chiefs of the Society regard as particularly pernicious, to make known among Western nations the long-suppressed facts about Oriental religious philosophies, their ethics, chronology, esotericism, symbolism, to counteract as far as possible the efforts of missionaries to delude the so-called heathen and pagans as to the real origin and dogma of Christianity," and so on it goes. Basically, Blavatsky was saying straight out there that the goal is to subvert Christianity. The reason why I felt it was important to mention that is because Madame Blavatsky was a huge influence on Alice A. Bailey, who founded in 1922 the Lucifer Publishing Company, which is now known today as the Lucis Trust, and it is centered in the United Nations. You're going to see why the connection between Blavatsky and Bailey, the Lucis Trust, and the United Nations is so significant. This is from the Lucis Trust website. For a brief period of 2 or 3 years in the 1920s, when Alice and Foster Bailey were beginning to publish the books published under her name, they named their fledgling publishing company Lucifer Publishing Company. By 1925, the name was changed to Lucis Publishing Company, has remained that ever since. Both Lucifer and Lucius come from the same root word, Lucis, being the Latin genitive case meaning of light. The Baileys' reason for choosing the original name are not known to us, but we can only surmise that they, like the great teacher H.P. Blavatsky, for whom they had enormous respect, sought to elicit a deeper understanding, get this, of the sacrifice made by Lucifer. Ellis and Foster Bailey were serious students and teachers of Theosophy, a spiritual tradition which views Lucifer as one of the solar angels, those advanced beings who Theosophy say descended, thus the fall, from Venus to our planet eons ago to bring the principle of mind to what was then animal man. In the Theosophical perspective, the descent of these solar angels was not a fall into sin or disgrace, but rather an act of great sacrifice, as is suggested in the name Lucifer, which means light bearer. Now, for those of you who may not know, the god of Luciferian witchcraft, or Seth, or Set, known as Samael or Satan, they believe that Azazel or Lucifer brought to Cain the black flame of consciousness, which is pretty much what they've just said in the Lucis Trust document there. In their belief, this was Set's gift, or whoever, Satan, Samael, whatever you want to call him, gift to mankind. In the black tradition of the Luciferian Trinity is Samael, Lilith, and Cain. And the goddess of Luciferian witchcraft is Lilith. They actually believe that Samael or Satan is not the devourer as the Bible teaches, but is the saviour. And further to that, in her book The Secret Doctrine, Volume 1, page 194, it says, "Fall of angels as it is called, Satan and his rebellious host would thus prove, when the meaning of the allegory is explained, to have refused to create physical man, only to become, listen to this, the direct saviours and the creators of divine man." So you can there see the direct quote from Madame Blavatsky's book. We're going to look at the Lucis Trust website here. Lucis Trust, support of the United Nations. The Lucis Trust has consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and world goodwill is recognised by the Department of Public Information at the United Nations as a non-governmental organisation or NGO. Plays an active role in the United Nations, particularly in spreading information about the UN and fostering support for UN programs. Since their inception, Lucis Trust and World Goodwill have given their support through meditation, educational materials and seminars by highlighting the importance of the UN's goals and activities as they represent the voice of the peoples and nations of the world. So World Goodwill is just one part of the Lucis Trust, okay, one of the things they do. There's a bunch of others, but let's just look at that for a minute. World Goodwill at the UN. In order to place a closer focus on the work of the United Nations and in particular the Sustainable Development Goals, the new Sustainable Development Goals for humanity have set a transformative agenda for the 15-year period 2015 to 2030. I came across a site that I haven't seen before from someone called Dean W. Arnold, and on that website he shows evidence that Bill Gates and George Soros both have been financial contributors to the Lucis Trust. And also interestingly on that website there is a picture of Jacob Rothschild with Marina Abramovic. You know, she's the spirit cooking lady artist. And as I said before, Luciferians do not consider themselves to be Satanists, and case in point here with Jacob Rothschild and Marina Abramovic. Here they are, interestingly, Jacob Rothschild and Marina Abramovic standing in front of Sir Thomas Lawrence's 1797 painting, Satan Summoning His Legions. Abramovic has vehemently denied being a Satanist. Folks, these people are the very ones that are expecting the Antichrist, who they will believe is their Christ, or they'll set up as their Christ. It is the Antichrist. Madame Blavatsky was basically the founder of the New Age movement, and Alice Bailey carried it on. And when you hear people talking about light and love and wishing you light and love, it comes from the Great Invocation, which you can see here. And of course, the plan has nothing to do with God's plan. It is the plan of the God of this world, whom we know as Lucifer or Satan. The land on which the United Nations sits in New York was originally donated by the Rockefellers. John D. Rockefeller offered an 18-acre site in what was known as Turtle Bay, and the city of New York also donated some additional ground to Rockefeller's gift. So that is how the United Nations became to be where it is. It was a gift from the Rockefellers and from New York City. The Lucis Trust and the New Age movement has had influence at the United Nations since it was formed. In the books that were written by Alice A. Bailey that were supposedly channeled to her by the Ascended Master DK, which I believe was a fallen angel or a demonic being, she lays out blueprints for the New World Order. The books are full of the blueprint for the New World Order and New World servers. And you will see through the quotes of politicians that they basically back up what Alice A. Bailey had written. The whole gist of the books is about teaching people how to serve the plan of these so-called Ascended Masters through the New World Order. Firstly, let's listen to Dr. Henry Kissinger espousing the New World Order.
Many people now think that the period between 1945 and 1950 was in many ways the most creative period or one of the most creative periods of American foreign policy. But it started with chaos and fear of Russian invasion of Europe and governments that were very weak and people who were very
So the United Nations came out of that, the Marshall Plan came out of that.
That's right, and NATO came out of
that, and later the Truman Doctrine came out of that later.
Right. There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world. I want to make one point about globalization. It's always discussed in economic terms, that everybody is better off. But that it's only partially true. Everybody is better off on the average. But in some countries or in some regions, people lose their jobs. Major adjustments have to be made. That's the engine of globalization. The people who are disadvantaged by the process look to their governments for solutions. But the governments are national and the problem is global. So how to bring about a relationship between the desirable process of globalization and its impact on the politics that we have to bring about together with other countries a different consciousness of what a world order is.
Notice there how Henry Kissinger talks about bringing everyone to a new consciousness of what a world order should be. That is very much New Age and occult kind of talk, and it fits in with Bailey's philosophies. For example, in her book, The Externalization of the Hierarchy, on page 29, it says here, the spiritual hierarchy will then work largely through the world scientists who, being by that time convinced of the factual reality of the soul and wise in the use of the forces of the soul and of nature, will constitute a linking body of occultists. Now back in that same book, on pages 101 to 103, Alice A. Bailey outlines 9 steps towards the New World Order. And it's quite plainly that she mentions the word New World Order and in the 9 steps that are there. At the beginning of those 9 steps, she says certain major and spiritual premises should lie back of all efforts to formulate the New World Order. And then she outlines the 9 steps. And they include the world passing through a destructive era and crisis and being after a time of recovery, of reconstruction and rebuilding. The Arcane School, which was founded by the Baileys, that's part of the Lucis Trust today, according to John Michael Greer's New Encyclopedia of the Occult, it states that the school seeks to develop a new group of world servers to accomplish the work of the hierarchy of masters under the guidance of its head, the Christ. Basically, folks, these people believe that the Christ is heading the spiritual hierarchy, these ascended masters who are spiritual beings, and they are leading everyone through meditation and study. The divine energy is transmitted to humanity and raises humanity's spiritual awareness. Bailey believed that all religions originate from the same source and that all humanity will eventually come to realize this, and when they do, the result will be the emergence of a universal world religion and a new world order. Now listen carefully to this. This is in another of Bailey's books called Esoteric Psychology Volume 1, and it's found on page 4. It says here, we see the plan, again in a capital P for plan, as it unfolds for a series of lives ahead, and we are today seeking those who can be taught to work in group formation and who can constitute one of the active units in the vast happenings that lie ahead. Listen to this. Connected with that 2/3 of humanity who will stand upon the path at the close of the age, with that 1/3 who will be held over for later unfoldment. We are training men and women everywhere so that they can be sensitive to the plan, sensitive to their group vibration, and thus able to cooperate intelligently with the unfolding purpose. Now listen to that compared with George Bush Sr.'s, one of his New World Order speeches.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge, a new era. And today that new world is struggling to be born, a world quite different from the one we've known.
And notice in this speech, which I think is one of the creepiest speeches I've ever heard, where George Bush Sr. talks about how they will be successful. And who is they? The servers of the plan, the Luciferians, of which Bush was one.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
And in this next piece, George Bush Sr. talks about the universal aspirations of mankind. That may as well have come straight out of an Alice Bailey book.
A new world order where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind.
Now listen to this, folks, as I read you some more from Alice Bailey. This one is from Esoteric Psychology Volume 1, page 89. It says here, in a treatise on white magic, I outlined one of the first steps taken by the hierarchy in the work of inaugurating the new plan. This plan was tentatively formed in 1900 at one of the great quarterly meetings of the hierarchy. In 1925, at the next great meeting for cooperation, the new plan was discussed in greater detail. Certain necessary changes growing out of the result of the World War were negotiated, and the members of that important council determined two things. First, that there should be a unified effort by the collective members of the planetary hierarchy over a period of several years, that is, until 1950, to bring about certain definite results, and that during that time the attention of the great ones should be turned towards a definite attempt to expand the consciousness of humanity and to institute a sort of forcing process so that men's horizons of thought would be tremendously enlarged and their faith, assurance and knowledge be equally increased and strengthened.
Now you have on the one extreme globalization, in which the nation is weakened. On the other extreme, you have religion. Then in between you still have traditional states, and how you can get an international system in a world that is states and all these other movements, that is bound to produce problems. We might actually witness the creation of a new order, because people looking in the abyss, even in the Islamic world, have to conclude that at some point ordered expectations must return under a different system.
Through the COVID-19 pandemic and the financial crash that's happening as a result, we are seeing the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the WHO, governments around the world, all pushing us into this globalist new world order. It's the perfect crisis, a manufactured crisis that is needed to bring the chaos, for them to bring order from that chaos and bring us into the new world order with its contract tracing and its restrictions and all that is going along with it. The perfect crisis, the perfect chaos for the new world order solution. So really, folks, while the majority of people in the world are buying into this new world order system without even necessarily realizing it and trusting the mainstream media and what they're told, we as Bible-believing Christians and those who follow biblical prophecy should be seeing these all that are happening, all these things that are happening at the moment, as fulfillment of Bible prophecy, and with the return of Jesus Christ being at the end of this, and who knows, maybe not all that far away. In a side room off from the main lobby at the United Nations headquarters in New York is a black altar situated in a meditation room. The altar is made of iron ore and it is called the Stone of Light. The meditation room first opened on October 14th, 1952. Meditations are held at the United Nations headquarters a couple of times per week. Additionally, a minute of silence, prayer or meditation is observed at the beginning of the UN General Assembly. Now here is a quote from the newsletter of the Aquarian Age community. As with any truly occult or spiritual symbol, this room represents more than meets the eye. It is replete with significant symbols, and the numerology, astrology and sacred geometry are all a part of this very small room, radiate their own silent but powerful spiritual vibrations, invoking the soul of those who seek to work through this organization for the benefit of humanity and the planet, and maintained by the Luciferian organization known as the Lucis Trust. The Rockefellers had a big part to play in the raising of the funds for this room and for its renovation. Now, this is the chamber where the Security Council meets, and on the wall you will find a very large painting. There are other people who have undertaken to describe what they believe the significance of each aspect of the painting is. I'm not going to go there today, except to say, look, in the middle you have a phoenix that is shedding its skin, basically, and it looks very much like Lucifer to me, that phoenix, and I have covered the phoenix in other videos, so I'm not going to go into detail about it here, but again, it's a very occultic Luciferian concept. It should be noted that the Lucis Trust is very involved in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which you may remember from earlier on were one of those 3 initiative partners with the United Nations New World Order on that website we looked at earlier. Well, hopefully you found this video helpful, folks. If you did, remember to give it the thumbs up, give it the old like if you're watching it on YouTube. Don't forget our website, aminutemidnight.com. All of our videos are put there separately from YouTube, as well as everything else we put there on the website. And we do run A Minute to Midnight 100% by donations as well. Hopefully, like I say, you found this video helpful. So God bless, and we'll catch you again soon.